Every theme park I worked had lots of break rooms, but they also had these huge employee cafeterias, and they were different from park to park. Here's a look at what they were like and how they were different. So I had a great time working at Busch Gardens in Tampa, Silver Dollar City in Branson, Missouri, and Walt Disney World just outside of Orlando, Florida. Like any job, you've got breaks, you have time to take off, and you have a choice to sit in your regular break room. And in fact, at Disney, I've actually even looked at all the break rooms at the parks in another video. But they also all had an employee cafeteria, at least one in every park. And those would be different than a regular break room. Those actually had full kitchens where they would serve you food, and they would be a little different in each park. Now, Busch Gardens has been a long time since I've worked there. I actually left Busch Gardens in 2006, so 12 years as I'm recording this. So my memory there is a little fuzzy, but I remember Busch Gardens having two break rooms. One was actually all the way up by Gwazi, near the front of the park, in the back of the big restaurant area there. And it was a pretty nice break room, had lots of tables, roomy seating, and it had a full little restaurant in there where you could order what you wanted or serve off the buffet that they had and pick up your food that way. They also had another smaller cafeteria that was near the middle of the park that was much smaller. And it would have just a small little buffet line, as I recall, and then some very narrow seating. I remember having to kind of move out of the way with the benches to let everybody get in. The one up near the front near Gwazi, you could order some make-to-order stuff, such as hamburgers and fries, and a few things like that. And they typically had kind of a standard set out there too. I remember the food being good. I remember especially the fried chicken. Oh my goodness, they made good fried chicken. The other thing I really remember about Busch Gardens cafeteria is the prices. They were cheap. Now again, this was 12 years ago, but I can remember going in about that time and getting a large fried chicken breast, a side of corn, a side salad, and a drink, and paying about $3.50 or so for it. Pretty good price, especially when you compare it to the prices in the park, which would probably run you about $9, $10 for the same thing. Or even at home if you tried to provide it. It was a pretty good meal for a good price. And so I did like to eat there. It was a long walk from our regular break room over at Rhino Rally, because we'd have to walk. We did actually have it timed though. We had it down to a science where if we had a 30-minute break, it would take us 5 to 7 minutes to walk over and then walk back. So you could figure 12 to 15 minutes walking time. That left you 15 minutes at the cafeteria, 5 minutes to get in, get your food, and 10 minutes to eat. So yes, a quick eating meal, but it was good food. Silver Dollar City's employee cafeteria was similar to that in many ways. Silver Dollar City only had one cafeteria, and it's actually up by the chocolate and candy shop. And it had pretty good food. They had a salad bar, fairly small, but a nice little salad bar. They would have a hot buffet bar where you could pick up a main dish, and they would typically have your choice of 2 entrees, 2 or 3 sides, and then a couple other extras on it. And you could kind of build a plate that way if you wanted to. Or they did have a few things that you could custom order. For breakfast, I always ordered a couple of eggs on the side that they would fry to order. Lunch, you could order a hamburger or a chicken sandwich or a couple things like that. And they would always have those that you could custom make to order. Or you had the small selection. Silver Dollar City had good prices. I'd spend about $2.50 for my breakfast every morning. And then on the few times I did walk up there for lunch, it would probably run me about $3.50. Now, I loved going up when they had barbecue. Oh, their barbecue was good. And so we were constantly kind of trying to check and see what they would have for lunch. One of the nice things, because I ate breakfast there almost every morning, was we would get to see what they were serving for lunch that day and then decide if we were going to walk up and come get it, maybe go eat somewhere else at the park, because with our employee discount, it was pretty reasonable, or if we just eat what we brought that day. And of course, if I was robbing in the woods, well, I was basically stuck with whatever I brought that day. But it was good food. Again, a decent little selection with a couple main choices, and then your make-to-order grill that you could definitely get anything from, and good prices. Disney's main cafeterias were a little different. Disney has a major cafeteria in every park. In the Magic Kingdom, it's the Mouseketeria, and it's actually down underneath where the Little Mermaid and Pinocchio and Be Our Guest is. It's underneath that area down in the utilidor area. And that gives you kind of a general idea. Large, huge cafeteria. Over at Hollywood Studios, they have another one that's over by Playhouse Disney and the Art of Animation. Right in that area, there's a couple little walkways you can walk in, and it'll take you back to where the cafeteria is there. And Disney's Hollywood Studios actually has a Company D store in their cafeteria. That's the employee store where you can go in and buy your cast member pins and water bottles and a few other things like that. Epcot has a large cafeteria as well. It's actually right behind Test Track, so you can find it there. And those cafeterias are all similar in a lot of ways in that they were big, lots of seating. The one park that was a little different was Animal Kingdom. Animal Kingdom, I ate at Restaurantosaurus, which is a small employee cafeteria that Disney itself ran. Not as big a selection, cheaper food. I believe they had another cafeteria there as well, but I only worked at Animal Kingdom a handful of times, and I usually took my lunch there because I didn't know my way around it quite as well. But the other three parks, all of their major cafeterias, had a couple things in common. One, they were big. I mean, huge. They could seat hundreds of people at a time. The dining area itself was comfortable, well lit, and a nice place to relax. They had TVs and monitors around that showed you what was going on in the parks, employee news. Occasionally you might have a sports event on, so if there's a football game on or something while you're working, you might see that on TV. But there were several TVs around, so you could kind of pick and choose what you wanted to watch, if anything, or just ignore it. Plenty of opportunities to sit down with fellow co-workers from your same department. Generally, departments didn't mix that much there. Silver Dollar City, everybody mixed together. Disney, you kind of stayed in your own department. A lot of that is because there were just so many cast members. There would literally be thousands working at the park on any given day. And with all the different departments, if you had somebody sit with you from a different department, there was a good chance you were never going to see him again. There were just so many. You might occasionally have cast members from different departments sit together if, say, there was a football game on or a TV show that everybody wanted to watch. And occasionally, you would have people who would know somebody from another department, so they would join that way. But for the most part, it really was pretty much only your department that sat together. So the PhotoPass photographers would sit together. The people from a certain ride would sit together, the merchandise people would sit together, and you would sit with people that you knew and wouldn't go outside of that bubble too much. Just because it was who you knew and who knew you, and that's kind of how it worked. However, there was an exception to that, and that was when the entertainment people came in. Specifically, the characters. Now, you didn't see this as much over at Hollywood Studios or at Epcot, but at Magic Kingdom, you certainly knew when the characters came in. Especially the princesses. You could tell, hey, there's Snow White, and there's Cinderella, and there's Aurora, and they would come in, and you would kind of watch a lot of the attitude shift towards them, and, oh, wouldn't it be nice to sit with them and to be known with them, and they actually had to deal with people that would occasionally just kind of want to scoot up and hobnob their way into the group. Now, as photographers, we kind of laughed at that a little bit because we already worked with them. We usually knew them. And, oh, hey, Cindy, how you doing? Good to see you. Have a good lunch. Hey, Jasmine, we'll see you right after lunch. Get back to work again. For us, it was no big deal. But there were definitely a lot of people that were like, oh, if only I could sit with them and be known by them because they're famous. Not everybody had this attitude. Some people thought the characters were stuck up because they were the characters. But there was definitely a difference in perception between most of the cast members and the characters. A good example is when Captain Jack Sparrow started to work. When he very first started at Magic Kingdom and he popped into the cafeteria one day and he had been up and getting his food and celebrating and he was just talking to everybody and entertaining because he was Captain Jack Sparrow. And of course, we'd all heard of him. It was really neat because you watched the whole cafeteria kind of turn and go, cool, it's Captain Jack! Now, at the time, Pirates was still pretty new, and it was hugely popular, and yes, even us photographers were like, go, Captain! Go, Jack! We had a great time with that in the middle of the employee cafeteria. So that was one area that you definitely would see a little bit of a difference in a class mixing is when the characters would come in. Yes, they were definitely noticed. What was interesting, though, was when you walked into the food area itself. At Walt Disney World, all three of the employee cafeterias, their kitchen areas were huge. You would have your grill where you could go order your pizza or your hamburgers, or your sandwiches, or if it was breakfast, your bacon and eggs, and several other things like that. That was at one section. They had another section that was the big salad bar where you could make your own salad and they would sell it to you based on weight. You would have another area which was kind of the homegrown special of the day, and it would typically have 3 or 4 different entrees and some sides, and you could kind of put together a plate that way. All of them had a Subway sandwich shop as well. So you could come in and get your standard foot-long Subway sandwich. And there was a huge variety of different things that you could order, and so many different places to order that you could still, even if there was a bunch of people on break at the same time, get your food and get in and out pretty quickly. Disney had this huge variety, but they didn't have the cheap food. While it was cheaper than what was out in the park, you could eat off what you brought for much less. As an example, Subway sandwich is something everybody knows. There was no $5 footlongs at Disney. They were all regular price. The food from the other spots, the grill and everything, while cheaper than what was in the park, still wasn't necessarily cheap. It would be $5 or $6 to get a burger and fries and a drink, which is about what you would pay at McDonald's at the time. So for many of us, it was cheaper and easier to bring our own food from home. And there was microwaves and other things there that you could use. So while it had a big selection, it wasn't the most affordable. Part of that is because Disney actually leased out their employee cafeterias to a company called Aramark. And Aramark is really the one who ran the cafeterias, prepared all the food, and did all of that. So you ended up with this middleman that was trying to make profit off the employees before then sending their lease payments to Disney, who was also then trying to make money off of it. So you kind of had a double profit thing happening, which meant the cast members were kind of getting stuck a little bit. Because, you know, when you're trying to make a profit off your own employees, yeah. Whereas with Busch and Silver Dollar City, they both ran their own cafeteria, and they were there really as a service for the people who were working, which meant they were able to keep the prices lower. So that was really the biggest difference. Size, variety of food, and the price. But all of them were always there if you needed an opening and if you needed to get some food. Now, of course, with Disney having just one major cafeteria in these huge parks, oftentimes you ended up not working anywhere near it anyways, and it would take you so long to walk to it, and then to get back, it wasn't worth going to, even if they had cheap food. So probably about 80 to 90% of the time, I just brought my lunch from home. It was cheaper, it was easier, I had it with me no matter where I ended up at the park, and I didn't have to worry about it that way. Whereas at Silver Dollar City, I probably ate at the cafeteria. I ate breakfast there almost every day I worked, and then I would walk up to the lunch facility probably about half the time when I was working as a conductor. Busch Gardens, it was probably about 1 in every 5 or 6 times I worked, we'd walk over to the cafeteria. So it kind of gives you an idea of how all that worked and what it was like. Hope you enjoyed this look at eating at the employee cafeteria at the parks. If you worked at a park or another company, I'd love to hear how it was similar or different to what we had at those. It'd be fun to kind of compare experiences that way. So please, let me know what it was like for you. Share it in the comments below. Are your impressions of the Disney cafeteria similar or different to mine? I'd love to know. Thank you again to all my patrons for helping support me. You guys rock. I couldn't do this without you. So if you want to know more about Patreon and supporting me, because really it is what helps make all of this possible and takes care of so much and provides opportunities for me to do so much more, check in the link in the description below. There's also links there for my merchandise, for my fan group pages, Discord, Reddit, and so much more. So be sure to check that. Thank you again for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day, and God bless. If you want to know whenever I have a new video out, well, hey, make sure you hit that button right there and subscribe. If you want to see another video right now, well, I've got a great one right here for you. And if you want to be like these wonderful people here and help support me financially on Patreon, well, check out that link right there and it'll take you to it. Thanks so much, and God bless.